Well, I guess first off, before I dive into anything, I would just like to welcome everyone here to the live training with us today. I believe it's probably been every bit of 3 or 4 months, if not longer, since I've actually done one of these workshops within our free Facebook group, our commercial roofer community. Obviously, distance makes the heart grow fonder, and I am super excited to be here, not just to reconnect with everyone here in the group, but also to Brian, to introduce you to this community. So it's been really powerful for us as a business, and also really powerful in some of the outcomes and things that we've been able to like help people through. And I'm excited for you to kind of be a part of that today. So my name's Cody, and this is my good friend Brian, and also a business associate. And we are here today to share with you the 4 steps to quickly growing your service and maintenance department. And if I know Brian well enough, we'll probably end up with like sharing like 14 steps with you guys today. So,
12 steps. We got to go with 12.
There we go. And really, for those of you guys that are new to the idea of service and maintenance, and you'll learn through Brian's story here shortly, that we've really utilized service and maintenance as a pillar and really the key to growing our commercial roofing businesses. So Brian, without further ado, and also without giving away the whole success story of the roofing business, would you give everyone a little bit of insight to who you are and just kind of like where you've been in the industry over the last 30 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's scary to hear 30 years, but if you can see my face on this video, you can see there's at least 30 years of roofing in there, right? Yeah, so I was fortunate in a way because I started in the estimating side of the business and then got hired into a roofing company, and then had the privilege of being in one that really grew from strength to strength. I took a bit of a sabbatical. I traveled to about 50 different countries, setting up organizations in different countries. So that was obviously fun. And then back in roofing. And since then, I've had the privilege of training, over 100 companies into the service business.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And so I'm going to stop you there because I don't want to share all of the goodies until we kind of get into the whole history and journey of what you've done over the past 15, 20 years. So for those of you guys that don't know, Brian is, I feel this isn't even doing it justice, but he is a monarch of the roofing industry, and what he's done is it's unobtainable by a lot of people, and a lot of companies try to build out the types of systems and processes and operations and organizations that he and other members of their team did. So you guys are in for quite a treat today. And then most importantly, let's talk about what's in it actually for you guys today, because that's really what matters most. And I could sit up here and cheer Brian on all day, but you guys would probably get bored and leave me here shortly. So you should be pretty fired up about this. In brief, really, like over the next 30, 45 minutes, I'm going to show you guys really 4 main things that I want to drive home for you, okay? That's how do you guys get your old clients that you probably went through one transaction with in the past, and how do we get them into a maintenance agreement? Secondly, I want to talk about a strategy for obtaining new leads with property management companies and how you guys can literally, I'll give you the tools to implement that right away. And then a couple other things. Really, I want Brian, if you're cool with it, I'd like for you to talk about how we inspect roofs, how we apply a grading system to those roofs, and then how we can ensure that we're like estimating efficiently and doing it the same way over and over to ensure profitability. And then the last thing I would like to touch on is how do we actually find these roof techs to do the work, or how do we leverage subcontractors to do so? Brian, first question for you. Could you share with everyone like why you're doing this, right? Outside of needing to keep the lights on for Linda there at the homestead, like why are you actually consulting businesses, commercial roofing businesses on service and maintenance, rather than say like metal roofing departments, which is my love language, and I know you have a vast background in, or say, sales training or something. Like, why did you choose service and maintenance?
Well, first of all, I was asked to do it, right? So
Mhm.
I would have been lying on the beach having a corona if they hadn't interrupted me. But so I was asked to do it. But as I was researching, like where I was in the early 2000s and where I was in like 2020,
Mhm.
um, I was with two vastly different sizes of company, the one truck to 28 trucks.
Okay.
And I looked at my notes at the one truck stage and I realized what we put in place, the structure we put in place then was what we were using with 28 trucks.
Wow.
And
Okay. Interesting.
so, yeah, that was just so mind blowing that um, certainly it's more complex, but it's not more complicated. And, you know, people get master's degrees in business. There's a lot to that because if you start it right, you can really scale it. Except, fortunately, we're not talking about having a master's degree in business. You know, I'm a yacht captain by trade.
Oh, nice. Okay. And I heard you while we were on a call with a client the other day. You said something that I found pretty funny. So, what was your realization when you converted from from being a sailboat cap to working on the roofs?
Yeah, well, as a sailboat captain, and before that, I was building boats, and then I got to sail around the world a couple of times. But yeah, the realization was that a roof is just an upside down boat, right? I mean, the difference was we were trying to keep the water out from below, and now we're trying to keep the water out from above.
That's right. If you're good, man, the floor is yours, and I'd be more than happy to let you kind of share some slides and walk us through what it looks like to, actually launch a service department from your perspective.
All right, awesome. A couple of things I want to encourage people with to start with is service is a big business. It's not repairing leaks. So if you can get into the service business, well, let me give you an example. I know of a company that's doing 55 to 60 million in re-roofing, and their service business is paying their overhead for the entire company. So don't underestimate the effectiveness of a service company. The other thing I want to say is if you've tried it and it didn't work, let's chat, because I've got a good friend who's got a $7 million roofing business who actually said to me the reason he went back and tried to get into service again was to prove me wrong, that you can't be profitable in service. And now he's got about 6 trucks and he's doing terrifically in it. So it's not fixing leaks and it's not a little side business. We're talking about the real deal here. So this first one I wanted to share because I'm still in this kind of encouragement mode, right? I don't want people to back away from service. Here's a growth curve of a company that I worked with. I'll tell you the story here that for every service dollar that this company did, they did 4, 5, or 6 times that in re-roofing.
Mhm. Okay.
Service will grow your re-roofing business, and re-roofing will grow your service business. They complement each other. And so what it means for the guys who are on this call who've already done a lot of re-roofs, even new construction, we can go back and get those clients into a service agreement. That's what we should do. And from now on, every time you close out a re-roof job, deliver your service contract because it's going to grow your business. I had mentioned earlier that it's not just fixing leaks, because if you're just fixing leaks, your growth curve is going to look something like this. You'll make money, you'll probably increase as well, but it's just going to be slow and steady. But if you get into what Cody and I will teach you about building a service company, which is through a quoted scope of work system where you're increasing your average job size, your growth curve is going to look like that. So, you compare the one with the other, and most of you would probably prefer to be in the black line than the blue. And Cody, I want to encourage you just to interrupt me at any time, because what I'll continue to talk about here is just what it's going to take for you guys to get this in place?
I think it's, especially since we're literally doing this 7 days a week right now. It's really easy for us to overlook the idea of just talking about repairs and service and, utilizing terms like T&M. So could you just really quickly, before you jump into that next slide, just define the difference between repairs in comparison to maintenance?
Yeah. Well, I love that you use the word define,
Hmm.
because in the service, maintenance, and repair division of our company, we're going to have 5 different products.
Hmm.
So if you think of yourself as a re-roof company, you might have some new construction, and may the Lord bless you. Um, and then you're going to have re-roof, hopefully with negotiated situation,
Hmm.
and you're going to have some kind of a restoration, right? It could be a reskinning or a torching a cap sheet or a coating. That's kind of your re-roof or construction side of your business.
Got it.
The service side of your business should look like this. You need time and material. So time and material is almost like a marketing arm. It's you serve through time and material. People are going to call you because they got a problem, and that's going to get you in. And I'd like to suggest that anytime you get an opportunity to get on a roof, your goal should be to take that roof off the street and not ever have another roofer get on that roof.
Yeah.
So you're going to have time and material. Now, a lot of the guys on time and material have gone to half day, full day type of programs, and those are good too. That'll increase your revenue a bit. But nothing is going to increase your revenue like getting into quoted scope of work. Quoted scope of work is when you get on a roof and you find everything that's wrong with it, and then you deliver a proposal to the building owner, property manager, facilities company, whoever it is, as a consultant roofer, as a asset protection manager, and you explain to them that if you don't fix this, it's going to have, it's going to be compromising the roof system, or it's going to be getting into your building next week. And if you don't look at this in 3 months' time, that's going to be a problem. And if you don't do a couple of these things, like topping up your pitch pans and that sort of thing, your NDL's out the window. And so I'm not suggesting that you're going to go up and sell everybody a $20,000 service agreement, but I am suggesting that your job as a professional roofer is to find out everything that's wrong with that roof, because we want to take it off the street. So that's your quoted scope of work. Now, you're also going to be working with manufacturers, so you'll be running into warranty opportunities, and please lean on the manufacturers for that. They need guys who will do service. A lot of companies won't. And then another side of this business that's very profitable, it would be tenant upfit or tenant build out type of work.
That's a big one. I think that's a big one that people don't really understand typically. So maybe if you could explain like the movement of refrigeration or things of that nature. Moving forward.
Exactly. So this will apply to a lot of industrial situations. We found grocery chains, for some reason, are forever moving their refrigeration, and that means the units move. But then you've also got, increasing capacity of refrigeration or air conditioning, or in a mall or strip mall environment where you get a new tenant, where there are different requirements from these tenants. Now we need grease traps, or now we need plumbing in different places, or now we need more air conditioning, whatever it is. Those opportunities are abundant. Those things are happening all the time. You just drive downtown and you've got cranes everywhere, right? Now, they take a little bit more organization, because you could have delays from other trades. So you need to be ready for that. You need to plan for that. You need to quote based on that. But those are usually bigger projects. And so now you're looking at projects that are going to be up in the $15,000 range. And now you're bringing up your average job size, which is a key thing to growing the company. And then the final product would be ongoing maintenance. And please don't miss this, because if you can put an ongoing maintenance agreement together, you've got residual income. And wouldn't roofers love to have residual income? So think about having 1,500 ongoing maintenance contracts at an average of $2,000 a pop, so that you open your doors on January the 1st and you got $3,000 in repair business to do when you feel like doing it, not scheduled.
That's another thing that most guys that I end up talking with on the end, they don't understand that aspect of it. So will you just talk to maybe your experience about, you're from the Florida market, or you guys service the Florida market. So could you talk about like how you leveraged that to your advantage about like when it wasn't raining versus when it was raining and things like that?
Yeah. And, of course, the Florida market, that we get 220 inches of rain a year and an occasional hurricane. So it's a roofer's paradise, right? But I have guys doing this in New Mexico. It's not necessarily rain driven. What you're trying to do is protect the asset that these guys own. It's probably the most expensive part of their building. And what's crazy is we'll spend or $2,500 a square foot on getting our teeth cleaned,
Yeah.
but we won't talk to someone about maintaining their roof.
Yeah, my main question, or really what I wanted you to share with everyone, because like this is what a lot of guys don't understand, but it was also a game changer for us, is realizing that we can do that work. We can service these people that we have these maintenance contract at our leisure. So I just wanted you to kind of talk about that a little bit, about what that looks like.
Awesome. So generally, in the Florida market, you've got two seasons, like rain and no rain, right? So you can actually do maintenance once a year, but most of the rest of the country should be doing it twice a year at least, and some parts more than that. But when you do it is up to you. So what you want to do is you want to maintain these roofs when it's slow, when it's not raining, when you're not fixing leaks, when you don't have a lot of work. Then you get your crews out doing the maintenance. Now, you'll get to a point where you'll have some dedicated crews and all they'll do is maintenance. But when it's slow, everybody in your company is going to be doing maintenance. And you're going to end up with 3 divisions within your service organization as you grow. You're going to have a time and material division. You're going to have a quoted scope of work division, and you're going to have an ongoing maintenance division. Initially, that might all be in one truck, but you need to think about that in 3 sections because they're handled differently. And the maintenance side is just a boon because we don't want to send our guys home. We don't want them looking for jobs somewhere else. We want to be able to train these guys well, keep them, and make them better all the time. And that's what maintenance is going to do for you, apart from the profitability. I mean, 75 to 80% gross margin is not unusual in the maintenance business.
Yeah, dude, I'm so happy you shared that. I was on a call with a gentleman from Arkansas, works the Little Rock market earlier today. And that his number one concern was like, hey, I'm ready to go full bore into this service and maintenance deal. However, I'm scared about bringing roof techs on and then not having anything for them to do. And so, we started to take a look at what does his past experience look like and how could we bring those people into maintenance. And yeah, so maintenance is a beautiful part of being able to keep those roof techs busy.
Yeah, I mean, and the other side of that is what you do is so essential because in the service business, you need leads. It's not good enough to get an occasional opportunity to bid. And I'll show a couple of graphics later. I like to say a truck needs to do at least $500,000 for you if you've got 2 techs in it. But in order to do that, you need a lot of leads. You're going to need about 15 to 20 leads a week to feed that truck. So it's an important part. I want to just talk about this business of getting a service division started, right? So you need to be able to, first of all, understand what the fundamentals are. Earlier I was saying that if you had a master's degree in business, you would start the business with a lot of theoretical understanding. In the roofing side, we need to have those fundamentals in place. From those fundamentals, we want to set up a structure that allows us to go from 1 truck to, 25 trucks with some minor tweaks along the way but basically with the same structure that's going to get us through. And then in order to run that business, we need to have a good process. And so we want to look at those 3 things. And I know, Cody, I think Ross is on this call with us as well. And maybe he can just send some questions or thoughts into the chat if he's not able to actually present. But he's very good, excellent, in fact, at keeping that process and that structure growing from the beginning. So maybe we'll get some feedback from him. But I put this pyramid out here, and maybe some of the guys who've worked with me before have seen it before. But the important thing here is that the Egyptians knew what they were doing, right? The Egyptians didn't build these pyramids upside down, because they built
Yeah.
them with the base being bigger than the peak. Now, it's a very profitable business. We're talking about 65 to 75% gross margin is what people are getting in the service business. But you need to start by thinking about what are the products and services that I'm going to offer. And I mentioned those 5 already. And you mentioned the word define. You need to define those 5. You need to talk about how you're going to execute those 5. And obviously, what I'm telling you, as you know, we do for our clients. This is done for you.
Totally.
But it's important to do that. And most guys don't have time because they're running a roofing company. That means they're up at the crack of dawn, and it doesn't end, right? So that's why it's handy to have a coach and a team helping you doing this. The next level of this is your production. Look, you can go out and fix a leak, and if you leave and it leaks again, you're going to get called back, right? So there goes your 70% margin. It just dropped to 35.
Yeah.
And then if it leaks again, you're probably never going to get a call back. So you need some guys who can fix leaks, right? I'm a big fan of the NRCA repair manual. I use it like the Bible when it comes to roofing. It's just, they did an awesome job. It's not comprehensive, but there are 150 deficiencies in there, and we can build on that, so it's a great place to start.
And just to clarify and define one more time, so a deficiency is like an issue that you would find within a roof inspection.
I'd love to find the idiot who actually applied that to a problem on the roof, but anyhow, it's a problem on the roof, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? If you and I walk a TPO roof, like if you and I walk 50 TPO roofs, we're going to come across the same 20 or 25 things wrong with them every time, right?
Yep.
So it's not like it's an unlimited list of stuff you need to teach these techs how to do. But another thing that I'd like to suggest on your production side in this area is when you bring techs on board, have a pathway forward for them. If you bring an apprentice on board, show him the 20 or 25 things that you expect him to learn, and that you're going to help him learn, and you're going to teach him, and the foreman is going to teach him, so that he can give himself a raise. He never needs to ask you for a raise. He should be able to learn all of those things, be proficient in them, and you will give him a raise. And then at the next level, the same thing, and the next level, the same thing. And what I found is we just attracted a much better group of people when people knew, when the word got out that this is a place you can stay for a long time. And they'll treat you right, and they'll teach you.
When people can see that there's a future in where they're at, and they have, there's something to, there's a star to shoot for, and there's a ladder of growth within the operation, complete game changer.
Absolutely. I mean, and, you and I would feel the same, right? We want a future. The next level of this is estimating. And, you and I are both estimators. I come from an estimating background. The thing about repairs is, like I just mentioned, we're going to come across the same thing over and over and over and over. So let's pre-estimate them. I pre-estimated 150 different I took every deficiency in the NRCA manual and I estimated it for material and labor based on coverage rates, based on production rates, because now I've got a price list. I've got a price list that I can take a intelligent, hardworking, nice chap and teach him how to inspect a roof. He never has to dirty his hands to fix it, but he can identify the problems and he can sell because he's got a price list that's supported by material and labor. So that's the estimating component. Now, that's going to get you about 80% of the problems on the roof. The rest, you're going to have to throw a number at, right? So either you got someone in the office. I used to get FaceTime calls all the time. What the hell is this that I'm looking at? And I'll give you a number. And then we'll add that to our database. So you totally add link to that library probably for the rest of your life, but only a small percentage.
What you've talked about so far, just to bring everyone up to speed, is Brian talked about being able to have a ladder of growth in which you can, bring your employees in and show them that there's, growth within your business and there's a future within your business. and then making the job easy on them by, giving them not only the catalog of the products, but also what the prices are. Like, what do we charge for each type of deficiency or each type of roof issue? So just wanted to bring everyone up to speed there and kind of put it in layman's terms.
Well, now we get into the sales area. Something that you and I know about services, you have to sell it. Because
you do.
if you're going to be reactive and do time and material, you're never going to scale. You're going to be that flatline graph. You got to sell it. You got to sell it aggressively, and you got to sell it intelligently. You got to identify yourself as the asset protection manager, the guy who knows roofing, the guy who's going to keep $300,000 of re-roof money in your client's pocket for 10 or 15 years longer than the next guy. You are hugely valuable. We need professionals in the roofing business. So we're going to train sales guys, and we're not going to train roofers how to sell. We're going to train sales guys. I prefer to train them how to inspect roofs, and I've had huge success with that. But I've got some clients who will have a sales guy and a tech go on a roof. I'm hoping over time, one of them is going to become obsolete, but you can teach this. And then the other thing about the sales side is for repairs, you need a professional proposal. You're not going to go over there with 3 lines and please sign here.
What are some of the things when your guys were putting proposals together? Can you think of any like key pillars that you would make sure that was on every single proposal?
Yes, absolutely. So, one of them is great photographs. So most of the guys that I've been to visit, and I've delivered a lot of proposals, obviously, if they're building owners, they're looking at the picture of their building and the picture of their roof. They're enamored by that. They probably haven't been on their roof, maybe ever. So have some great pictures of the roof, not only from the top, but from different angles. Another thing you want to do is get a nice elevation picture, not only to keep the client happy, but, I'm not going to admit this on public Facebook here, but it's possible that you could go fix the wrong roof if you don't have the address, nicely photographed.
Yeah.
The other thing you want to do is what's the roof cost? Because do you want to spend 12 grand on this repair, or would you rather spend 750 grand on a re-roof? So make it relative. Then you need a picture of every deficiency. I prefer to get a nice close-up one with something that'll give you scale. Tape measure in there is great. Pencil in there is great. And then something, from a bit of distance so that you can actually see, okay, where is this on the roof? And with that, a description of the problem and a description of the solution. So, I've spoken about a lot of things that going in a proposal, but a proposal should go out within 24 hours of you being on the roof. So that means you got to have a good system to create those. You need a good method of creating those proposals, but they need to be professional and comprehensive. A lot of your clients are going to be corporate clients who've got a lot of money. We're talking about P&L, profit and loss type expenses, right? We're not talking about capital expenses here. These guys have got budgets that they can spend money on. So we need to deliver, and we need to deliver preferably everything that should be done on that roof. Now, if a property manager's only got the ability to sign off on 5 grand, the urgent stuff on that roof should probably be quoted at about 4,500, and then we'll sell the rest later. So you do need to use your brains here, but you also need to give them an opportunity to improve their property.
All right, awesome. So that's the sales, or talking about the salespeople themselves. Do you want to touch on the service coordinator and a couple of the key roles within the organization?
Okay, yeah. One thing I would like to say about administration is metrics are absolutely critical in the service business. You need to know your numbers. You need to track your numbers. You need to know your trends of your numbers. Because like I was saying earlier, you're going to need, 15 leads a week. That means if you're only getting 10, you're not hitting your targets, right? If you're only getting 5, you're probably losing money. Yeah. And if you're getting 25 on a consistent basis, it's time to add another truck. So you need to track your numbers. You guys do a brilliant job of that. I think it's just one of the most important and overlooked things that we've got out there. Next thing that we should talk about is just what does your company structure look like? Now, I don't want everyone to leave this call right now because they don't want to spend all this money on these people. I'm not a fan of overhead, right? I believe in investing in my business, but I also believe in keeping my money and getting paid early.
Well, I think it's
So
also important for them to understand, and maybe this is where you're going, is like these are roles, not people, like for what you're showing us here.
exactly, exactly. So, you know, on the marketing side, we need people that are going to get us opportunities, right? Now, most of this column could be Cody Klein, but you need somebody to work within that organization, right? So we've got to think about that. This brand ambassador role, the person who answers the phone in your company is probably one of your best salespeople if trained correctly. So you need to work on that. Think about that. And I think it's the most underpaid position in the company. To me, that person at the front desk should be making big bucks, probably double what most people are paying them, and they should have some skills.
Mhm.
There's also a lot of other stuff they could be doing. So that's your marketing section. In the sales area, one of the huge lessons I learned late in my career is once you have two good salespeople on the road, your next hire should be an assistant for those two good salespeople. People always look at me a bit strangely when I say that. I can tell you what my salesman said to me when I started that. They said, "About bloody time you got me an assistant." You know, but the fact is that assistant will make them 50 or 60 times more productive because, frankly, they become their boss. They'll make sure they're at the right appointment at the right time. If the appointment canceled, they'll have a replacement appointment set up for them. They'll make sure their proposal is put together within 24 hours, and they'll make sure that the contract, when it's signed, has got everything in it, including a 50% deposit and enough detail for the production guys to easily go out and do the work. So that becomes a team that's really awesome if you work it that way. And then we get into the operations. So really what I want to focus on here is the top section. We need 2 techs ideally in a truck. Not only is that a good idea from a safety standpoint, but it's a good idea from a productivity standpoint. The only time you make money is when you're working on the roof, especially estimators. I'm thinking I'm a freaking rock star. I'm making the company money estimating. I'm making them squat. I'm overhead. Until those guys are on the roof actually working, that's when we start getting revenue, right? We don't get it before. So we want to have those guys we already spoke about well-trained, and you need some kind of coordinator initially. But as you grow this, you're going to have multiple trucks. It's really easy if you got one truck and you got 10 jobs for them to do this week. You can pretty much tell them what they need and, say, go and do it. But you got 3 trucks, now you got 30 jobs. Now we're talking, it's a little more complex. So you need someone to help them schedule. And then once you get to 3 or 4 trucks, you're going to need some kind of project manager to help them. Then, of course, on the finance side, you've got your control and accounting. But a lot of the finance side of a service business should be handled in operations.
I was about to elaborate and just say, because those are the ones that know what's going on in the roof, right? And so, for instance, the issue that we ran into personally within my own company was the accountant, or we had a bookkeeper that worked in-house, and she would get these calls asking about billing. But it would be about, I saw this on the invoice, but did you guys do X, Y, and Z on the roof? I didn't see your guys do that, or I didn't see photos of it. She doesn't know the first thing about roofing. So exactly. It was almost like a disconnect,
Yeah, absolutely. And you can change the time that your money's on the street by one phone call. Where if you can solve that problem right there, your check's on the way. Whereas if your accountant's saying, I don't know, I got to transfer you to someone, and that, when you get out to the production side, this is what it's going to look like as it gets bigger. You're going to have multiple vehicles out there. You're probably going to have some kind of project manager managing those guys, teaching those guys, making sure they got the right materials at the right time for the right place. And then eventually you'll probably have the big kahuna here who's managing multiple project managers. And then you got your dispatch and your coordinator. So that's what it can end up looking like. We spoke about the fundamentals. We spoke about the foundation, right? Mm-hmm. Now we got to run this business. And we touched on that a little bit with the organizational chart. But what I found it useful to do is to segment this into 4 sections, right? So you get a big problem, break it into little pieces. The first one is contact to contract. So how do we get the lead? How do we schedule the inspection of the roof? How do we put that proposal together? How do we get the contract? How do we get the 50% deposit? And how do we put together the details of that project so we can hand it over to project preparation? Project preparation for a small company isn't hugely complicated, but the more trucks you get, the more important that area gets. Because you've got to make sure the right guys with the right skills have the right tools and the right materials and be at the right place to get that repair done, right? And if you've got multiple trucks, that's a lot of rights. So it's hard to get it right. Then you get into the execution side, which to me is, first of all, you get paid because you're executing, right? But the other thing is you make sure you get paid when you're executing. When your guys leave the office to go repair a roof that somebody's been waiting for you for 2 weeks and they got a bucket under the inside collecting water, you want to let them know, yoo-hoo, we're on the way. Hey, we got there. Hey, the project's underway. Hey, it's done, cleaned up, finished. Expect an invoice. Invoice should not be a surprise.
Now, Brian, on this topic, so this is a big one right here. So this is really what I wanted to touch on. Are there technologies and softwares that you lean towards to set up all of these types of automations and to set up these systems?
Software becomes essential in this business as you grow, because you'll get to a point. I mean, if I say to you 6,000 transactions in a year, does that sound scary? That's what we're talking about. It can get really huge. So you need software. I've designed software for this. It's something that you absolutely must have. And there's several out there. Software is what you put into it, right? It's not a light switch. If you invest in a software, be prepared to really invest your time and get good at it. But you do need software to execute that. And, as you know, we can always talk about the tools that we have, that we offer our clients at any time.
Yeah, and that's like the reason I kind of teed you up for that is, number one, I already obviously knew the answer, but I wanted you to share with everyone that you have created a software to basically do all of these tasks that you just shared with us. And then secondly to that, not only because I wanted him to toot his own horn for a moment, but we also will do the build out with you guys, like as we're working with you through the process. And as we're building out this service department, we'll make sure that all of those automations and those things are built out within the operation. So,
yeah, because I can imagine right now when I said pre-build 150 deficiencies or problems on the roof, half the guys on this call were saying, "Stuff you do it." Well, yeah. I did. I did do it. So we have the software where it's pre-done. And that is very useful. That's, it's useful in a lot of ways because it'll help someone who's not that experienced do the job well. And it'll help someone who is into software and estimating to really build out a great program to run your business with. So, yeah, it's a key component.
Not to be ambiguous, the software is called Contractor Toolbox for anyone that's interested. I don't want to shield anything or hold anything back. So, yeah. And then I guess, Brian, the last piece of this, do you want to talk about the accounting piece and the get it, collecting our money, trying to get paid,
What I did is I started by making this thing look simple, 4 sections, and now I've just turned it into 25 sections. So getting paid, a lot of it really starts at the beginning, right? When we first get called by a company, we should be identifying who's going to pay the check, who's going to sign the check. In fact, I'd even like to know who's going to print the check. So we want to make sure we do our homework. We want to make sure we've got some kind of document that actually says, I ordered this work, I'm authorized to order this work, and I will pay you when you've done it. And then you go through making sure that you invoicing them correctly. You've got good information on it. You've got good people in the background to handle their questions. And then finally, you should always be offering an ongoing maintenance warranty, a warranty of some sort that ends, and then we go into a maintenance agreement. So every re-roof that you do at your closing table, don't do this while you're estimating and trying to get the job, because you'll just you'll make it complicated and you'll lose the work, because, this is something you do on the back end. when you deliver your closeout documents, and everybody loves each other again, right after they've just hated you for tearing their heart out for the last month, ripping everything off their roof, when they love you again, this is when you're going to deliver an opportunity to maintain that roof over the long haul, and also the requirements of the manufacturer to do that. So that's what you get into on the back end. And if you do your paperwork right, your collections are going to be easy. I've got a client, a big client, one of the top 100 contractors on that roofing contractor list.
Sure.
He said to me, because he's got his paperwork so well organized now, when he's got collections, they can go meet at small claims court and he's going to get paid because he has the data. He can prove that he did what he said he was going to do. We get into a lot of the kind of things you want to be tracking and that sort of thing. But before you get into your questions, I do just want to touch on this.
Yeah, please. This is great.
Your success in the service business is a mathematical formula that, and it's not equals MC squared. I mean, it is a little complex, but it's a mathematical formula. If I want that truck to do 500,000 and I want my gross margin at 65%, and if my average job size is $2,500, I'm going to make $325,000. I'm going to spend 3,800 man hours doing the work, and I'm going to need 2 men and a truck. That's a mathematical formula. And this little red section here is your gross profit per labor hour. Next to your gross margin, the most important number in estimating and in pricing in your business. And this is the reason it's hard to scale a time and material business. Because if your labor is 80% of your invoice, your gross profit per labor hour is a very low number.
Yeah, very minimal.
And it's just logical. If you had $10 of labor and $10 of material, you mark those both up. So if you don't have the material to mark up, you don't have the profit in it, right? So that's why these bigger projects make more sense. But the other thing is you can then, from those goals, calculate, okay, how many leads do I need based on what? How many leads can I convert to appointments? If 1 out of 2 leads becomes an appointment, you're going to need double the amount of leads than you need appointments, right? And how many appointments we need? Well, we know how many sales we're going to make, right? We're going to know our average job size. We know our goal in sales. And then from appointments to contracts, what's your closing ratio? If you know your closing ratio, and if you know how many proposals you put out, you can forecast how many labor hours you're going to have available for your crews for the next couple of weeks. And that's critical information, right? So you got to be doing this math. I know on an annual basis, it looks hard, but if you look at it on a weekly basis, or a monthly basis here, in this case, we want to do $500,000 in service and we only get 1 appointment out of every 2 leads. We need 68 leads a month. We need 34 appointments. We need 17 contracts. We need to be on 2 roofs a day. So you can do the math. And quite frankly, once you know exactly what to do, it makes business a whole lot easier, right? That's why I think it's so important to track it, because we've identified what we have to do. Now let's track what we have to do and let's make adjustments to make sure we're executing.
Well, I think I heard you say this the other day while we were on the call with one of our clients, and you said, what gets measured gets managed or gets, taken care of. And it holds true across the board. So number one, thank you so much for sharing that with everybody. And I'm sure there's a ton of questions, but I have a few that I kind of, personally want to ask you. And you've given us a lot of statistics around what some of these other businesses were doing and, different statistics from different parts of their business. But I've got a question for you from your personal business that you were a part of. What did that business actually look like before you guys decided to implement service, 15 years ago? What was the company's strategy at that time? Like, what kind of roofing company was it? And how were you guys actually performing?
Yeah, so we were losing money doing new construction. The problem with new construction is it's really a contradiction. GCs make money when subs lose money.
Probably 35 to 40% of our business was new construction. So I got to learn that first-handedly. Lucky me. And and for a short period of time. And we did government set-aside projects, right? So we were traveling from military bases from Fort Buchanan up to Fort Lee in Virginia, out Puerto Rico to Virginia. And it's not too much different even within the set aside business, within the federal business. So where did you guys get the idea to start going, service and maintenance based? And like, what was kind of the aha moment in knowing that, like, okay, yeah, this is the route we're going to go?
Yeah, so probably two major things. The first one is there's a statistic out there that says about 80% of roofs are re-roofed prematurely.
Okay.
Now, I don't know how accurate that number is, but it's a high percentage, which means there's a huge amount of money left on the table for repairs, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing is most NDLs, most warranties require maintenance on an ongoing basis, and many of them require you to keep records. So it was almost like, man, we got legislated income here. It's almost like legislated income. And then the third one, which not everyone in this chat will relate to, was Google Earth. Because once I started looking at roofs on Google Earth, I'm like, man, these roofs are not looking that great. We can actually spruce these roofs up and we can extend the life of them. And the fact of the matter is a maintained roof really doesn't leak.
That's funny. I've had the exact same epiphany when I've been flying in an airplane coming into an airport, right? Or either taking off or coming into the airport. And anytime that if you're at any point in time, you're ever feeling like you have a scarcity mindset as a roofer, just hop on an airplane and like fly up and look at how many roofs there actually are. And that'll show you the abundance card for sure.
Cody, the first guy that you say to him, you don't need to re-roof this. We can repair it. We can extend its life.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to turn around and say to you, oh, I'd like you to look at these other 45 roofs that I have.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I mean, there was a guy, I know you spoke out in, it was one of the smaller conferences out in Colorado not too long ago. And there was a gentleman there that had a funny story. Do you mind sharing that with the group?
Yeah, I mean, this is, okay, so if you want to take anything from this conversation we had, this is what happened with this guy. He listened to me talk for an hour. And then the next Monday, he went and met with, a building owner. He didn't know much about this guy. They got on their roof and he said to him, we can save this roof. We can extend the life. He said, I've never said those words before. I just basically said what you said. And this guy turned around to me and he said, listen, I've got 7 other buildings. He ended up getting 3 re-roofs and maintenance agreements on all of them. And now this guy has got a commercial roofing business. He was a residential roofer.
Yeah, it's awesome. And which there's a fair share of those guys here, joining us today for this call. So last question on my end is like, as you guys implemented, I know that you guys sat down, you had a roundtable meeting. How did things start to turn around for you guys after you put that plan in place, after you had that roundtable and you decided, hey, we are going to build $100 million company, whether it takes us a lifetime or 10 lifetimes, like this is what we're going to do. Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, well, very often success comes out of adversity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've just come out of COVID, and we came out of a material shortage, and in our case, we went into a banking crisis. There was no money. So what that proved to us was if we repaired and serviced and helped our clients and not try to re-roof prematurely, they become loyal to you and they give you other properties. And what happened coming out of that crisis, the re-roof business boomed because we had been doing repairs. And so this is why if you can get into the repair business, but don't play around with it, this is a serious business. Grow a serious repair business, you're going to have a serious re-roof business.
Cool. And then the very last part of that is, will you share the numbers of I know you shared earlier, you guys went from 2 trucks to 30 trucks, 32 trucks.
Yeah.
And will you share what the revenue numbers looked like as far as the split between re-roofs?
Yeah. So the way it panned out is at 2 million in repair, we're doing about 8 million in re-roof.
Mm-hmm.
At 12 million in repair, we're doing about 60 million in re-roof. And that company continues to grow. They'll probably do 75 million this year.
Wow.
Um,
So that
so
that ratio holds true than what you were saying. Like the ratio of doing, $4 or $5 for in re-roof for every dollar that you did in service work was essentially true from the time you had those couple trucks on up to having the 25, 30 trucks.
20 years of records, and it's
Mhm.
just consistent.
So cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I have a few questions that, like I said, came from the community, and I feel a little bit indebted to have you answer a couple of these if you have the time. But I do want to be respectful of your time. So, do you have a couple minutes here?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, cool. The first question is: how do you hire your first tech person or tech people, or how do you leverage subcontractors to do it?
So you can absolutely use subcontractors to do this, but the problem with subcontractors, you don't have control of their schedule, right?
Hmm.
So if you got a subcontractor whose schedule you control, good for you. Generally, you're going to need a W 2 guy. And the place I would look is in my existing environment. Do I have anybody on my payroll or even a sub that I can get to come work for me who is able to do commercial repairs? Now, don't fall into the trap of falling in love with your first guy. I got a client in Arizona who he was running his service business. He had one truck and two techs. And he's like, Brian, this is just not really profitable business. Until he hired the next tech, and he was 4 times quicker than that first tech. And he realized, man, so this is why it's good to start with pre-estimated, because we know what those production rates should be. You know,
Hmm.
you and I get on a TPO roof and we're going to do a wall flashing. We're going to get 15 foot done in an hour, right? We know those numbers. So we don't want the wool pulled over our eyes by some slack tech.
Yeah.
Um, so you're going to look for that tech in your environment. You're going to, if all else fails, here's a out of the box way of going to find those techs. Find out where the commercial roofers go and have a beer and a sandwich on a Friday night, and send somebody there who can speak their language with $100 in their pocket and buy a few beers and sandwiches. You're going to find someone who's looking. But you can also lean on the manufacturers, on your suppliers. Those are all kind of good resources for that.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for answering that. The next question is, do you have any word tracks utilized in the sales process? Any like go-to word tracks in either describing service and maintenance to the building owner, or anything that can like just kind of like blow them away right off the bat?
Yeah. No, there is absolutely a method that works in discussing it. And I touched on it a little bit where I said I want you to be an asset protection manager. But
Uh-huh.
really, what you've got to be able to explain to the most important thing for a building owner to understand is that his roof is aging every day. I used to send roofs birthday cards because I wanted that guy knowing that, today my roof is starting to go gray and he's wearing glasses and now he doesn't hear so well and I'm going to be putting diapers on it soon. So your roof is aging. And so my message is I'm going to slow down the aging process. I've got that magic stuff that you can get in St. Augustine, that fancy little bottle of water that's going to stop you aging. I'm going to slow down the aging process of your roof. But then more importantly, if I'm on your roof on a regular basis, Cody, we know that if a roof's insulation, if 25% of the roof's insulation is saturated, you cannot do anything to that roof. You got to replace it. If you can catch a roof before it reaches that point and do a coating or torch a cap sheet or reskin it, you can extend its life 10 or 15 years.
Yep.
So your story is one of good management, saving you money. So the absolute best thing you can do is educate your clients. And so the way that I've done that, we've built PowerPoint decks that you can take and teach clients what commercial roofing is about. Commercial roofing is this big mystery out there because there's no formal training for commercial roofing. So how are you going to find out about it? Your grandpappy has to be in commercial,
That's right.
So and this is what we've done for our clients is we've put these slide decks together where they can, who does this a lot is restoration companies.
Hmm.
Restoration companies will go do a dog and pony show and show, listen, when the crap hits the fan, this is how we're going to save you.
Yep.
You can go behind those guys and do a 5 or 10 minute presentation on, let me just explain what commercial roofing is, how it's different from steep slope and low slope. What are the different materials we use? what are the different roof decks that are out there? Most people, they look at the roof and they think their roof is that acoustical ceiling that they don't realize above that there's a metal deck sitting on joists, and above that there's a roof system. So you just educate people. And quite frankly, several of my clients now have got accredited to educate people, so that people come to them for ongoing education credits through their teaching of what commercial roofing is all about. That's a game changer. You change your whole relationship with your client.
Totally. So getting accredited to do, to provide CE credits for property managers, insurance agents, real estate agents, things of that nature, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. And there are multiple organizations you can do that through. BOMA is one, CAM is one, and as it turns out, a lot of my clients have been doing it through different ones that I didn't even know did it.
Awesome. Cool. And then the last question, man, last question we have teed up here is, how do you find competent people? This is verbatim from the question asker. How do we find competent people that can think outside of the box? That's been our biggest challenge to growing our service department, finding critical thinkers instead of guys that just go slap a T-patch on a hole and walk away with no assessment or customer interaction. In my organization, we felt the same thing in the beginning in my own roofing company. Where we felt the shift was when, you can have hard work, you can have guesswork, or you can give people a framework to operate within. So when we took the pressure and all of the weight off of their shoulders to make any sort of decisions, and we created systems for them to follow and kind of like confines for them to operate within, that's when, those silly issues, not to say that, everything's perfect, right? It is construction. We still have mishaps. But to the gentleman that asked this, that, creating the frameworks and having that extreme ownership of your business and creating those lines to operate within, that was a game changer for us. And then Brian, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I'll just add to that specific point. Have you ever imagined what it would be like if tomorrow when you drove out of your house, there were no longer any rules of the road? You can drive on any side of the road. You can go sideways, backwards, forwards. It would be a disaster out there, right? So having that structure process, I want to give them a production sheet with material and labor. They need that. But the other thing I'd encourage this guy who asked the question to do is to think out of the box himself. Let's start, what I would rather have than a roofer is I'd rather have a hardworking, intelligent person that I can teach. Because it's an old adage that we hire for skill and we fire for character. So let's start with character and let's have a great training program and a process to bring these guys up. That might mean you need one guy who's really good at something that you have to live with, because he's not the best guy. But if you've got him teaching, if you're helping him to teach, and I'm just talking about throwing 2 pieces of plywood down in the parking lot and starting to torch some cap sheet. Let's weld some boots. Let's do some sheet metal. But let's educate, let's teach, and let's track it.
I think, anyone and everyone that runs a roofing company can get lucky. And I say that for lack of better words. When I say that, I mean, any which one of us could go out and we could land a deal or a couple deals per year, big deals, especially in storm environments, right? If you guys are looking, if you love the ideas that Brian shared with you today, and you're looking to build a real commercial roofing business with sustainability that yields the same type of margins and profits that Brian was talking about, you guys really need to shine your light on potentially offering service and maintenance if you have the bandwidth to do so. It obviously takes some work to get going, right? We don't just flip a switch and this thing's rocking and rolling tomorrow in your guys' business. But we do this 7 days a week, literally 7 days a week right now. And if you guys are looking for somebody to guide you through the ins and the outs of what it took to build, multiple 7-figure service and maintenance programs at the 50, 60, 70% gross margins, we obviously have the recipe. And if you guys want more information on that, I want you guys don't reach out to me unless you guys ask these questions to yourself, okay? Because what we're doing is a long-term partnership. we don't work with guys anymore. We don't work with guys on short-term leases. The questions I need you guys to ask yourself, if this is something you want to do, is number one, do you actually want to build a service and maintenance department? If you look at your 1-year plan or your 3-year plan or your 10-year plan, is that the type of business that you want? All right. Are you trying to build a lean operation and, where you don't have 60 sales guys, chasing storms all the time? The second question is really like, do I seem like somebody that you guys could work with for, 12, 18 month period? And, could you put up with Brian for 12 to 18 month period?
No, that's a no.
That's a tough one. And then the last thing I want you guys to really think about is like, do I have the resources right now? If you're operating out of scarcity, it's probably not the right time or the right move to jump into something new, right? Focus on the basics, get your cash flow to where it needs to be. And so what I would ask you to consider is, do I have the money to hire people to do some form of marketing, right? You can do it on a small budget, but as Brian said, you do need leads. And do I have the money to dedicate one of our trucks to doing service work? And if the answer is yes, then I would ask you guys to send me a message or to shoot me a text message on my personal cell. And we'll see you guys in 30 to 45 days when we do the next one. Talk to you soon. Thanks for coming.